Girish completed his engineering degree at IIT Mumbai and then did his master's in robotics from Virginia Tech, USA, and also pursued engineering management studies at Stanford. He worked in Silicon Valley for 15 years in various sized companies ranging from startups to mid-sized companies to large public corporates. He started his career as developer of automation products at Consilium, which was later acquired by Applied Materials, and soon after helped build the mission-critical automated material handling system at Intel's factory in Ireland. He became one of the youngest program managers at Intel responsible for large factory automation projects. Subsequently, he joined what was then a relatively small startup called Webvan, and where he was primarily responsible for the deployment, scalability, and technology integration of the critical distribution center at the heart of the business. Webvan grew to be one of the largest e-commerce companies in the US in 1999. Girish later joined Siebel, where he was senior director and managed several diverse engineering groups. He joined Netcore as chief operating officer in 2005 and was appointed CEO in late 2011. During his tenure at Netcore, revenues have increased over 10 times in last 8 years, and the employee strength has grown 5 times. At Netcore, he has helped set up the mobility division and helped lead the company to become a leader in email and mobile marketing. Under his leadership, Netcore has won several domestic and international mobile marketing recognitions and awards. Girish's greatest contribution to Netcore has been to make it an innovative and competitive workplace and bringing in a professional, open, and fun-loving culture into the organization. He is renowned for his cooperation and partnering with others, be they clients, employees, or vendors, for win-win outcomes. He has also shaped company's ability to attract key people and giving them an optimum space to grow. Today, Girish will speak on managing in times of chaos, how to continuously do course corrections, how to evolve new business models in times when the best of the predictable strategies fail, and in times when multiple external moving parts make your business all the more chaotic, and how to really keep track in these times to thrive and grow. Girish.
So after Ashok, I'm going to have a really tough act to follow. What I'm going to speak about today is mostly from my experiences over the past few years, about 20 odd years in different companies of different sizes, some very large companies like Intel and Siebel. And then I've also worked at startups like Webvan, where when I joined, it was very few people, and then we grew to 5,000 people. And then, as Ashok had mentioned, in the US, even failure is celebrated. So Webvan was one of the most spectacular failures in the internet boom. We raised about $1 billion in venture capital, and I was right in the heart of it. So I'll explain some of those experiences. In 2005, I then moved back to India at Netcore, which was a startup which was doing many different things in the Linux space, but they weren't kind of growing, and so I just took the risk and said I want to move back to India. And at that time, mobiles were kind of taking off. The mobile revolution was happening. In 2005, if one looks back, there were more landlines than mobile phones. And today, the mobile phones is more than 10x or maybe 15x the number of landline phones. So I've kind of seen, I think, 2 or 3 different technological revolutions. One is at Intel, heart of a semiconductor company doing chip design, and I share some of the experiences there. I'm just kind of summarizing what I'm going to talk about, and then cover both managing within those environments, and then kind of, when we're talking about managing in chaos, I'll describe what turbulence or chaos means, with kind of saying what is it like to be there. So, just kind of sharing those experiences. So let me start off with Intel. When I joined, I was a young engineer, about 25, 26 years old. just done my master's in a software engineer. And Intel had at that time kind of redefined, they used to be in the DRAM space. They were very, very good in manufacturing. And then the Asian market had really taken off as a low-cost manufacturing. And Intel had to almost redesign the whole business model. So they decided to make the 486s and the Pentiums and all of that. And even as a very large company, the ability of a ship to move steam very quickly, if one were to summarize how the leadership team there, of Andy Grove and Gordon Moore, were very, very humble people, but very, very focused on what to do. So when there's a time of turbulence, where everything that they had built for the past 10 years before that was kind of evaporating almost in an instant. The Asian crisis of manufacturing had come about. And to then redefine what the company does. And when we redefine, when you're talking about 20,000 people doing something else, you really have to think, how do they do it? Because sometimes, as managers, and we've sometimes managed people, to get 3 people to do something different is sometimes hard. And I'm actually struggling through that problem today at Netcore. We have a senior management team. What do we do next? Sometimes one has to really look at how do companies think. And I think the critical piece here is when Andy at that time saw this happening, he just kind of had this one team across different divisions do the status quo, because they already had product lines in the market. But then almost a whole different team in manufacturing, chip design, all of that has restructured to cater to the new market of chip design. And this meant not only the company itself, but the whole ecosystem of suppliers to Intel had to change. And driving leadership in that is a mindset change, because you're not doing anything for yourself, but you also have to drive everybody who's supplying to you to do something different. So they had to change their business models. One crisis that I then saw at Intel was, some of you all may have read about, was a Pentium Flow, and this happened during my tenure there. The Pentium was shipped with a chip which had when you divide it by 0 during some calculations, the software would the hardware would crash. And at that time was the time when the internet chat rooms were really taking off. And there was a lot of negative publicity to what, whether Intel would give a reimbursement. And initially, because it was a very costly chip to go and recall chips, because anytime you're doing manufacturing and you're shipping millions of products, to do a recall is very, very expensive. So the initial call that Andy Grove made was that you cannot do a recall, and if a user can prove to them that they had an application that was very, very relevant and mission critical, then they would do the recall. There's a lot of negative publicity in the press at that time. So much so that just in 2 months, the negative publicity, we were in the press every day. And this was just an example of a turbulent time, where a very, very successful company, which is almost the marquee company in semiconductors, the only thing you read in the paper is negative publicity about why you're taking a high-handed approach to doing something. And so then they, within 2 months, then they reversed complete course, did a U-turn on the thing, and then wrote off $465 million. But this is a very high-end case that I just had the experience to this thing, on how a company sometimes has to take feedback from the market, or perception is reality. The users really didn't need to get those chips back, but because perception was reality, they took the hit of hitting back. After Intel, then I joined a company called Webvan, which was in the thing of making an internet food supply. So a person could log in and deliver food, and it would arrive at his house, 5-6 hours later. Now, why is this important? Is, again, this was in the heart of the internet boom. Silicon Valley was coming out with almost an internet company a day. And today in India, there are lots of e-commerce companies that are actually taking shape, right? There's venture funding going to them, all of that. So what really then is turbulence is how you differentiate, right? And how is it that what you are doing that somebody else is not doing, and how are customers going to really differentiate? You have to have great quality, you have to have great pricing, but you really need the customer wow to be there. So Webvan, we were set up, our founder was Louis Borders, who had created the second largest bookstore in the US. And the whole model of Webvan was to build a large distribution center and eliminate the whole thing, the supply chain of retail stores. So people did not need to go to a retail store to buy the groceries, but the distribution center would directly, through a system of trucks and vans, deliver them to the house. Now and so from the business model perspective, this sounds simple. So what was then the business challenge? The business challenge was to get economics right in logistics. And many of you all who may or may not be doing e-commerce companies may realize this. Economics is the critical part of business, right? So while you might have a great business plan, to really get the margins, it's not really revenue, because a lot of times the metrics are how many customers do you have, or how many page views do you have. In the end of the day, sometimes even the venture capitalists, when they give you money, they will say, these are the first metrics. But one always has to bear in mind that the end metric is, does the company make money? It's not only about having users, but can the company make money? And when you really look at that, you have to be realistic about how long is your runway to get to making money. And the money that you need to get there, is that enough? So Webvan, what happened was we built these distribution centers. They were about $30 million a piece. That had about 5 miles of conveyors inside. So you can imagine boxes roaming around. It's almost like an airport, but what's happening is person A has ordered bread and milk and ice cream, and somebody else has ordered ice cream and a Parker pen and ketchup sauce. And both of them live in the same locality. So you got to kind of have all these boxes roam around and then optimize the delivery. So a very complicated system. And what it was doing was trying to eliminate the whole thing of retail in between. So while there was expensive distribution centers, the whole, a retail store has a lot of floor space, landlords, all of that was eliminated. But we were at that time scared that Amazon, which was delivering books, may get into the business. And we were scared that Walmart, which already had the distribution, may go online. So this was in hindsight. One of y'all spoke about, understanding a joke after the punchline. So this is what happened at Webvan. Is we built a distribution center in San Francisco, serving the whole Bay Area. The economics had not yet broken even. But because of our fear of Amazon and Walmart, which had so much more muscle than us, that they are going to come and enter the space, we started replicating these distribution centers in 26 other cities. Had this thing with Bechtel. They were building the distribution centers for us. And this was really the flaw, okay? Because until you get a cookie right from a margin perspective when you're making money, all you're doing is when you're making 26 of them, theoretically to outpace larger competition, you're actually increasing your losses. So as an entrepreneur, when you're looking at competitive advantage, turbulence is in fact almost the constant in business. As an entrepreneur, the only thing that one can guarantee is change and turbulence actually. Irrespective of the industry you are in, whether it's healthcare, e-commerce, semiconductor, manufacturing, low-end manufacturing, petroleum, telecom, and some of the seminars in the afternoon will talk about very different entrepreneurship stories. The only constant is going to be chaos and turbulence. So then as a manager, what is it that one really does, right? If one looks back, one says, first of all, don't panic. Because it's like if there's a fire in a stadium, right, and all the audience starts going to one exit, there's a high likelihood of a stampede and some of them, you potentially dying or getting badly injured. The thing to do is really look at what are the potential other options, and does it make sense to go make a beeline where everyone else is making. And a lot of times, the companies which really show leadership is the ones that actually take time to think about what to do. Analyzing that process of what has changed, being completely frank with yourself, because a lot of times your previous assumptions of what the company will do are being pulled out from under you. So until you have that honest conversation with yourself or with your partnership team, and then with your employees, on what needs to be done next,